In this episode of PulsePoint, we'll update you on these topics. The Ministry of Education has just released a disturbing new guide for school toilets. The mainstream media and taxpayers union is pushing the issue of taxing churches. The U.S. Supreme Court will consider a case about protecting children from transgender medical interventions. Europeans turn against leftist parties and policies. Finally, Roger Federer goes viral for saying family is a team. Welcome to PulsePoint, the latest media stories and research related to family and society that you need to know about. It's time to cut through the spin and uncover the real issues. I'm Tambi Sowers. The Ministry of Education has just released a new guide for school entitled Toilet and Changing Space Design for Schools Design Standards, Guidance and Reference Designs. In it, they say that a school must be functional, responsive, and sustainable. For toilet design, schools that are responsive they enable a konga, whānau, and community to authentically engage and participate in local takanga, matauranga Māori, and te ao Māori. For sanitary spaces, this means align local takanga and te ao Māori values. Design supports te ao Māori values and celebrates cultural activities and spaces within the school. Remember, this is referring to toilets. When it comes to urinals, they say urinals are not permitted in new builds and should be removed when upgrading existing toilets or not meeting our design principles for learners. But why did we have urinals in the first place if they're so nasty? For example, water conservation. Urinals use way less water in a flush. They take up less space than a regular toilet. They avoid queues. The design of urinals reduces fluid contact with the surface, promoting better hygiene. They're also designed to minimize splashing, thus reducing the spread of germs and making it easier to maintain a clean bathroom. But the guidelines around signage are very problematic. When choosing the signage for toilet doors, considering icons and signs that are inclusive and easily readable. For example, consider signage that communicates the functional use of the toilet cubicle rather than allocating use by sex. Use inclusive terminology such as all gender, all abilities, inclusive toilet or toilet. Avoid the term unisex as it focuses on biological sex rather than spectrum of gender. And avoid icons of figures wearing pants or dresses as this suggests that a person's clothing accurately reflects gender or sex. You'll notice that all the suggested signs are just labeled wharepaku, Māori for toilet. No mention of boys, girls, male, female. The closest to female is the one circled. Now, as Fern Hexon from Resist Gender Education wrote, reducing girls to a menstruation icon is deeply offensive and treats females as other than the male norm. The female icon is not understandable or relevant to young premenstrual girls in primary schools. Women and girls who are vulnerable when using a toilet deserve secure, clean, and private single-sex spaces. Only females need to remove clothing, make skin contact with a toilet seat, and manage menstrual flow when using a toilet. The Ministry of Education are continuing their obsession with gender ideology by indoctrinating our children, even when it comes to toilets and urinals and signage. Make sure to check what is happening at your child's school. You can watch more on this issue on MacBlog on our website. We've been warning you about the government's intention to look at the taxation of churches. Now, last week we told you about the Minister of Finance, Nicola Willis, saying that Inland Revenue will be investigating this issue. And the briefing to the incoming ministers for the community and voluntary sector from the Department for Internal Affairs, which questioned whether the advancement of religion still be a charitable purpose with associated tax benefits. But the mainstream media have been keen to push the issue also. In April, the Prime Minister was asked about taxing churches. And then on the AM show, Finance Minister Nicola Willis was asked about the same issue. But we were alerted to another recent story, also a news hub, where the media were highlighting that while schools, hospitals and churches are exempt from paying rates, police are not. Now, under the law, all these groups do not have to pay rates. For example, Marai schools, hospitals, sports clubs, airports, Maori customary land, public halls, libraries, museum, art galleries, land used for public swimming baths, playgrounds, wildlife sanctuaries, and national parks and places of religious worship. But in this media coverage, you'll note that only one of those groups are focused on. Can you guess which one?
Religious historian Peter Lynham says there is a case for making churches pay rates.
I think you could argue very reasonably that all buildings should pay some sort of rates because all buildings in a city get some services from the city.
But that's not the only inconsistency on the Taxpayers Union's radar.
There are clearly some issues around churches and not just rates but also income tax, for example.
I'm not sure that I should be, getting taxed while churches and things like that shouldn't be.
In April, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said he'd look at changing the income tax exemption status of churches this term.
Yeah, we'll certainly be looking at things like that this term, yep.
But it wasn't included in the budget. So when?
We've got 36 actions to get done by the 30th of June. We did that first 100 days. We've got a lot of things to consider, but we're just working our way through that. It hasn't been a topic of conversation.
Others clearly are having the conversation about why our police are paying rates when churches are not.
So now it is messy, university, academics, and even the Taxpayers Union pushing this issue. Churches are certainly the target. On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court announced it will take up an important case next term. The court will decide whether it is constitutional for states to protect children from harmful and damaging transgender medical interventions like puberty blockers, opposite-sex hormones, and surgeries. Now, currently, 23 states have passed laws protecting minors for transgender medical interventions. Some of those laws are held up in court. Family Policy Alliance, which has led the way by drafting the very first piece of Help Not Harm legislation, issued a statement saying that this is one of the most important cases for protecting vulnerable children since the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. According to a summary of the recent national elections and European Union election by a colleague Bill Muhlenberg from Australia, elections have sent shockwaves down the spine of Europeans' leftist leaders and parties. Now, conservative parties in a number of European countries have dominated the leftist parties. From Ireland to France to Belgium to Germany, the conservatives are clearly in the ascendancy. A good majority of Europeans are deeply concerned about the big two I's, immigration and Islamization. Open border policies in which almost no questions have been asked over the decades have meant that countless Muslims have moved into Europe. Now, if they all came because they affirm the values and beliefs of the West, that would be one thing, but many do not. Now, the Prime Minister of Belgium has also resigned after losing to the right in the general election. The Conservative Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, consolidated her position. In Ireland and so many other countries, the Conservative have made big gains. The message is the same everywhere. Europeans want to affirm Europe and not see it disappear because of runaway immigration, Islamization, and radical leftist agendas. Now, the globalism agenda of groups like World Economic Forum and the scary nature of radical Greens policies were also targeted. As deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray said, can the far right still really be called far right if it becomes the mainstream? And finally, the greatest tennis player of all times, Roger Federer, gave a commencement speech at Dartmouth College at New Hampshire to the graduating class of 2024. Federer is a professing Catholic, married to Marika, his wife, for 15 years, and they have 4 children. He's also known to carefully navigate contentious issues tactfully, yet with wisdom and grace. Federer's speech went viral for all the right reasons. Here's what Federer had to say on family.
A family is a team. I feel so very lucky that my incredible wife, Mirka, who makes every joy in my life even brighter, and our 4 amazing children, Myla, Charlene, Leo, and Lenny, are here with me today. and more important, that we are here for each other every day.
He then went on to encourage graduates to travel, soak up culture, invest in friendship, and love and cherish their families. His mother also inspired him to help other children by helping them get an education, and so he encouraged the class to be like-minded. Federer then stressed the importance of developing and maintaining a strong character. Now, Federer has always been a great ambassador for the game of tennis, but it seems he's a great ambassador for family and virtue as well. And that's the latest episode of PulsePoint. You can check out all these stories and more on our website, familyfirst.nz. We'll keep watching the news so that you don't have to. See you next time.